let's start with that defensive front because we know how important it is for them to have quality like 7 to 8, strong. And I'm putting Reddick in there as well. Reddick is an edge rusher. He's not no off ball linebacker. He's not so linebacker that's going to sit there in coverage. So he's coming hard, like Brandon Graham and Josh Sweat and Derek Barnett. And because of that, I think they're fine. But where there's issues after the loss of Hargraves is on the inside. And I think that I could see them actually upgrading the inside of their defensive line, maybe even twice, including their first pick.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a team that's just going to throw more talent into the trenches, even though they're already very good there, it's Philly. And this is why they're so successful. And this, I mean, I'm actually glad they're having some success right now because I'm huge on this. Just always feed the line, feed the line. You're always going to find a spot, especially on the defensive line, to rotate these guys in. And it seems like every year teams they lose their mojo halfway through the year, back third of the year, because they don't have any depth along the lines. And, you can make the case that they need to fill that Hargrave hold right now. But even if they feel they have a solution there already, they're going to pump resources into the line. This is what they do.
Yes. It all depends on whether or not it's going to be with their first pick or not.
Right.
That's the main question. And look, they have pick, was it the 10th pick?
The 10th pick.
And the 30th. So they get that Saint pick. And so on our last mock draft, we had the Eagles going. Now, this was about a few weeks ago. We had them going with a corner. But they brought back Slay and they brought back Bradbury. And it looks like those guys are going to be there now for the next couple of years. And then they signed Greedy Williams. So I'm not so sure cornerback is the spot to go with at this point. So I think safety is a little bit more important. But they had Terrell Edmonds, so that was nice. I just don't know whether or not they are comfortable. Like, have they decided that Reed Blankenship is now legitimately going to be getting starters reps? I like Blankenship. It was a nice story. Did everything at Middle Tennessee. So maybe that's the case. Undrafted player. Justin Evans is a guy that disappeared for a few years. So I'm not sure what they got there. But yeah, I think they could use a safety, but when I'm just talking about defense overall, I guess the other question is going to be Nakobe Dean. Is he ready to take over the middle linebacker role? Is that what the whole plan was? And then they went out and signed Nicholas Morrow to add to the linebacking unit. So depending on that, after the losses of TJ Edwards and Kazir White, do you agree? Do you think that once we look past defensive tackle, there really aren't a whole lot of glaring holes in the back seven?
Yeah, just questions at linebacker. Those are two big questions because TJ Edwards and Kaiser White, they were big parts of that defense. And I know some Eagles fans that were not happy about losing both those guys. They knew they were not going to be able to re-sign both, but to lose both those guys and put all your eggs in the Nakobe Dean, Nicholas Morrow, Christian Ellis, Sean Bradley, Davian Taylor basket. Those are two big question marks. So I think another body there would just kind of give you a little bit more insurance in case one of those guys does not work out. And Dean, you're talking to someone. I had Dean as a second rounder last year, and I thought this was one of the best values of draft weekend. I know there were some knee concerns with him long term. So I do think it's going to work out there. I love Dean. He did flash a little bit. He saw a little bit of playing time last year, but a supporter of him, I don't feel that good about I don't feel fully confident about that projection of him being a really good player. So,
and are they better? And so we would be looking at with their 30th pick.
Yeah.
And so we're looking at what? Maybe again, we were doing this again. Are we looking at a Simpson? Are we looking at? Would he be like the out of the top three? Sanders, Simpson, and what's his name? Campbell from Iowa. Would Campbell or would Simpson make more sense?
That's a good question. In terms of what they lost in TJ Edwards, who I think was a more important player than Kaiser White, a little bit harder to replace, I think Campbell fits that mold a little bit more. Simpson's more of the athlete. I mean, right now, I don't have first-round grades on any of the linebackers, right? I think they're all second-rounders. I could see one going, but they might have their choice. I mean, it's a good possibility. They're going to have their choice as one of those three guys at number 30 overall.
All right. And do you agree with the defensive backfield, or do you think they need to add a safety?
Yeah, I'm not a huge Terrell Edmonds guy. I don't think he's a long-term solution. Blankenship, like Nakobe Dean, still a little bit of an unknown, even though he did play a little bit more last year. So I agree with you. A safety at some point would be a
At
good
some
idea
point,
here.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, by the way, we're not talking. Is there anybody that they could be thinking about at defensive tackle with their first pick?
Well, so number 10 overall. I mean, Adebawore.
How about using the one of their picks, could be the second first round pick, to move up and get what's his name from Alabama, Jalen Carter from Georgia. Excuse me.
Oh, Jalen Carter. I mean, if Jalen Carter drops, this is NFC East fans.
Again, we're at 10, and if he's if we're through 5 or 6, and if 3 quarterbacks go in that top 5, he could be available.
Right.
Could the Eagles move up 3 or 4 spots? And do you think that would be something that they should consider? Because this is an organization that would make a move like that.
Absolutely. I mean, Howie Roseman is one of the most aggressive traders draft weekend. He's been that way for a while. And considering what they have, I mean, you put Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter back on the same line, with Fletcher Cox and Milton Williams, even Contavious Street. Yeah, absolutely. That would be an Eagles move. If Carter actually gets past Seattle and Detroit, which I'd be shocked to see.
Yeah, because we both kind of like him going to Seattle. Yeah.
Yeah, and if not Detroit, but that's definitely a move the Eagles. I would even say I'm surprised they don't do it. But you'd have to trade up with who? Vegas, and I think Vegas would take Jalen Carter in a heartbeat, unless they're, again, if this is a character issue for some teams,
you never know.
You can see it happening.
And again, we were talking about adding potentially, giving you another first round draft pick, just move down a couple of spots.
100%. Yeah, absolutely.
Eagles could afford to do that.
Yes, they could, and it would make that defensive line scary good.
A lot of other teams that they would be potentially trading with, we could get another pick. We'll do that. Yep. Okay. All right. Offensively, then, you take a look, and running back, I think that if they added a running back who also was very good in the passing game, I think that's a no-brainer for them with one of their first couple of picks.
Right. Yeah, the running back, it's funny. This is a team that a lot of us don't want to give Bijan Robinson to because they just don't draft first-round running backs. But in a year where you have 2 first-round picks, so you have a little bit of a luxury to work with, in an offense that obviously needs a number 1 back, right? In a team that is just so close to winning the Super Bowl, getting Bijan Robinson almost seems unfair, especially in this offense. I think he's an ideal fit for this offense, right? I mean, Bijan can fit into any scheme, we know that, but this situation with Jalen Hurts and not having to carry the ball 25 times a game, also catching the ball out of the backfield, right? This would be another Jalen Carter. It's almost like an embarrassment of riches, right? If they are going to be in the market, if Jalen Carter falls, or if they just sit at 10 to get Bijan Robinson or Jalen Carter added to the best team in the NFC, I mean, it almost seems unfair. But philosophy-wise, they might just not go there. So they might have to wait till day 2, day 3 to get a running back. But I would bet that they're going to add a piece. Rashad Penny, they signed in free agency. You just don't know what you're getting there. I think it was a 1-year deal regardless. Trey Sermon, not a factor. Boston Scott, great depth chart running back. Gainwell is kind of a wild card. You've seen a lot of hot and cold with him, and they really haven't trusted him in the 2 years. But, Miles Sanders was there, so maybe they are going to give him the keys to the bus this year.
I still think, though, when you're looking at teams, and we've covered them all, not many teams don't have, hey, this is our number 1 running back, and we know who he is. Or they have 2 really good co-guys. Not many teams have, because I don't care. Boston Scott is not a really good number 1 guy. So the Eagles are one of those very few teams that could really use an upgraded running back.
Yep.
So,
especially, I mean, we're talking about, let's not forget, when we're talking about an upgraded running back, Bijan's the best back prospect we've seen in a long time. We're not talking about, a good running back. We're talking about a special guy.
And maybe if they don't trade up and somebody's not there, maybe they trade down and pick a Robinson.
I mean, with Howie Roseman, everything's on the table, and that's kind of what you like about him.
Also, offensively, the guard situation, because Juergens is now going to get a chance to start at guard, at least until Kelsey retires. Then you think Juergens more than likely moves back to center at some point. So you would think this is a good year to add a guard.
Yep. I think if I remember correctly, I gave them or you gave them Torrance in one of our mock drafts. And
yes,
this is as high as I could see him going. And it would be such an Eagles offensive lineman pick. And it would just, I mean, if anything, they lose their starting right guard to Pittsburgh in free agency and they bring in this kid and all of a sudden their offensive line is better, right? Cam Jurgens, right? Like him a lot. He was not picked to play right guard. He was picked to play center for when Kelsey retires. So can you go into the year and say Jurgens is there? Sure. That's fine. But if Skoronski falls down, if they really having a high outlook on Torrance, right, they can definitely go there. And just look at how this offensive line has been built, right? A lot of high picks. They value the offensive line. They know that's why they win a lot of games. They know that's why Jalen Hurts took that big step up into an MVP caliber quarterback. They've
lost a lot of depth over the last couple of years.
They do.
So they need to replenish that depth.
They do. And I think Torrance makes a lot of sense here with that number 10 pick.
Yeah, that was our first mock draft.
Okay.
We had him going pick number 10. And then overall, they could use a number 4 wide receiver.
Yep.
Because, again, like we've seen with the Bengals and other teams, if there's an injury to one of their guys, then there's a hole.